Here's some psychology you didn't ask for. The chemical lifespan of an emotion in your body is only about 90 seconds. After that, you're just replaying it in your head. Welcome to the Shift Show. Welcome back to the Shift Show, all of you wonderful people. If you're new here, I'm your host, Adam Blevins, and this is the corner of the internet where we make mental health like your aunt's hairstyle in the 90s. Exciting. Think of this as the world's least professional TED Talk, with a lot more sarcasm and the occasional life-changing realization. If you've returned to this dark little corner of hope, sup? Today's episode is going to be about mental health. And before your nervous system makes you change the channel because it's afraid that you'll open up something terrifying, stick around because something might come up. And although that may be scary, it's also an opportunity. Okay? Don't worry, we're not going to unpack your childhood or go over your diagnosis today. All right? Today we're going to go back to the basics, the simple stuff about mental health that nobody ever taught us and life never prepared us for. Now, what qualifies me to say shit to you about mental health? Well, I've been through my own mental hell. I've learned how to survive it, got a master's degree in clinical counseling. I'm now a resident in counseling. I'm an EMDR provider, and I'm pursuing a PhD in trauma-informed care. Are you impressed yet? I don't care if you are or not. I'm not here to impress you. I'm not here on this show to impress you or to be your therapist. I'm here to offer you what I continue to learn, hopefully to help you. And hopefully to explain some of the stuff that we should have been taught before life started punching us in the face. Good? Let's continue. I want to start with a question. Did anybody ever teach you that you can quiet your emotional brain by triggering the logical one? Did anybody ever teach you that quality sleep hygiene is the most important component to your mental health? Did anybody teach you that your anxiety might come from your parents rushing you all the time or demanding perfection? No? Me neither, because nobody taught us this crap. And I mean the basic human stuff, like how to handle a panic attack in a Walmart parking lot, or how to stop mentally doom spiraling at midnight, or how to admit that you're not okay, and that it's okay to say that you're not okay, and what to do about it when you realize that you're not okay. We were told to stop, drop, and roll in case we caught on fire. But nobody ever said a damn thing about what to do when our brain is the thing that's burning down. And that's what this episode is going to be about. It's going to be about the basic mental health stuff that nobody ever explains because everyone just assumes that you either know it already or they don't know it themselves and don't know how to admit that they don't know it themselves. Because mental health has become this weird, overcomplicated concept that people throw around all willy-nilly without actually knowing what it means. When most folks think about mental health, they think it means being happy or calm or doing goat yoga on a spirit rock somewhere. But real mental health is just the ability to function without losing your shit in a Chick-fil-A drive-thru. Don't do it there. The Lord, He watches. Mental health is emotional plumbing. It's making sure the pipes don't freeze and that the pipes ain't backed up with some stress-induced emotional feces. Are we uncomfortable yet? No? Nah, give it a minute. It won't take long. Today we're going to get down into the nitty-gritty of the mental health basics today because if we're being honest with each other, clinical language gets old. It's boring. And most people don't understand it because your third-grade teacher didn't tell you what agoraphobia was. If I start saying things like emotional regulation, affect tolerance, corpus callosum, maladaptive encoding. Half of you are already saying, what? We're not doing that here, okay? We're not doing that today. I'm going to translate the hard-to-understand therapy stuff in some plain old hillbilly Sugar Grove English, okay? Some real talk about why your brain does what it does, how to stop letting your brain bully you, and how to get through a Tuesday without mentally flipping a table. And we're going to start from square one, the real simple basic stuff, because somehow we grew up learning long division, and most people can tell you that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. But how many of us can say that we learned how to handle grief or anxiety or depression or loneliness? Nobody ever said, hey, just by the way, your thoughts aren't facts, okay? Nobody ever said, you're not going crazy. Your nervous system's just doing jumping jacks. By the end of this episode, I want you to understand yourself just a little bit better. Not in a cheesy, cliche way, but in a that really explains a lot about my life kind of way. So, grab your coffee, grab your sarcasm, and whatever coping mechanism feels all warm and fuzzy today. Back to the basics. So basic, let's shine some light on some misconceptions that relate to mental health. And again, people throw the word mental health around like it's interchangeable with self-care or being positive or being optimistic. It's all over the internet. Instagram posts every 5 seconds with perfect pastel backgrounds, beautiful cursive fonts, and some quote about protecting your peace with bath bombs and happy, happy energy. And I'm not knocking that stuff. That's manifestation, baby. If you're doing those things, keep doing those things. But that's not exactly mental health, okay? That's probably someone's way of coping with mental health related things. Mental health isn't bubble baths and just walking away from toxic people. Are those components of mental health? Yes, they are. But mental health is the state of your mind, okay? The state of your emotions and your nervous system, all trying to play nice in the same sandbox. It's how your brain, your body, and your behaviors either team up together or turn on each other to help you survive whatever situation that you're in. And when it's working, mental health is invisible. You don't really ever think about it. You just kind of feel steady, like there's a balance to your life and your routine with little or infrequent disturbance to that balance. You're not constantly bracing for bad news or constantly overthinking everything. You can enjoy a Tuesday without feeling like you have to earn enjoying the day. When it's not working, everything in life almost feels like a job interview that you didn't prepare for. You wake up tired, you think too much, you feel too little, you stay tired, and your motivation button's been replaced with a please just stop existing for 3 minutes button. But what you weren't taught in school is that most of it's just our biology. Your brain is basically a TSA control tower for life's bullcrap. There's a whole bunch of different systems all trying to keep you alive. Some of them are using some outdated software. We've got the limbic system. That's your emotional alarm system in your brain. We got the prefrontal cortex, which controls your logic and your impulse. Then we have the nervous system that runs between them, like the world's most anxious moderator. When you get stressed, that system goes, holy shit, we are dying. And you get flooded with adrenaline, cortisol, and panic sometimes. And it doesn't just have to be when there's a saber-toothed tiger jumping out of your closet. It can also be when your boss calls you into their office. And when these things happen, people start to think they're going crazy. When the autopilot starts to wear off and their systems start to recover, that's usually where the symptoms come in. But you're not going crazy. You're just wired to react like a caveman when poop gets dangerously close to fans. The problem is, nobody explained this stuff to us when we were growing up. They said, just calm down. Just calm down. But calm down doesn't mean anything to a nervous system that's doing donuts inside your chest. You can't logic your way out of a biological lightning storm. That's why understanding the science behind your mind matters. Not to sound smarter than everybody else, but because once you know a little bit more about why your body's reacting to something, you stop thinking you're crazy when your body reacts to something. Mental health is not the absence of bad days or dark thoughts. It's knowing how to handle them without self-destructing. It's emotional literacy. It's learning how to name what's happening inside you before it hijacks your day, your week, your month, and even your freaking life. So before we get too far into this thing, you don't need to fix yourself. Okay, you're not a broken toy that needs to go back to the North Pole for recalibration. You need to learn yourself. You need to learn how to pick up on the subtle little cues that your body uses to tell you when something's off. Because when you start to understand a little better how your mind actually works, you stop being so afraid of it. And you start using it as an ally rather than treating it like an enemy. Speaking of enemies, you know what a real villain is regarding mental health? Social frickin' media. You ever notice how everybody's suddenly an expert when it comes to mental health? If you scroll through your phone long enough, you'll see 15 different people telling you to heal your inner child, cut toxic people out of your life, and drink moon water. My wife's going to hate that one because there's literally moon water all over this damn house. I'm married to a witch, a beautiful, intelligent witch. But seriously, we're drowning in information, but starving for sense. Between Instagram therapists, YouTube shamans, and your third cousin who cured their logic with conspiracy theories, it's no wonder people think mental health is either nonsense, magic, or weakness. We've built a world where people can quote trauma therapies all day long, but they still haven't learned how to breathe when their chest tightens. See, part of the problem is the internet. The algorithm we consistently confront on this show does not care if it's true. It just cares if it feels relatable. Sorry, algorithm, please put my videos in front of people. But the constant memes that fall in front of our face, that's not therapy. Okay, that's not healing. Those aren't healing practices that psychiatry has proven to be beneficial to people. Now, reading positive affirmations and getting lucky enough to find some real mental health advice online is fantastic. But that's not always good psychoeducation, and it's not processing. That's more like spiritual fast food. But I think that a deeper reason why we're collectively confused when it comes to mental health is that we were never taught how to sit with ourselves. We were never taught how to visit our own thoughts without that stigma wall flying up. Society teaches us to perform wellness, but not really to practice it. We've developed a culture that struggles to look beyond the surface. We see what we see, and when we can't see it, we don't see it. What? I think that made sense. Speaking of culture, some of you grew up in households where emotions were treated as weakness. Some of you grew up in others where they were used as weapons. And when you walk out into a world that tells you to just be positive all the time, just get over it, what if you don't know how to get over it? What if nobody ever taught you how to ride a bike, and the first time you try is in your 40s, you're going to bust your ass? We don't know what we don't know. And if you grew up in one of those kinds of homes, you probably shove it all down. Wrap it all up in sarcasm, dark humor, and call it your personality. By adulthood, you can't tell the difference between I'm okay and excuse me, my brain is having a heart attack. That's why I try to translate this stuff into human frickin' language, because in the field I work in, where I'm currently a resident in counseling with Rivers of Hope Counseling, by the way, when we use words like dysregulation, somatic activation, affect modulation, these are real terms that have clinical meaning. But it sounds like I just tried to instruct you how to harvest octopus ovaries in Japanese. Do octopi, whatever, do they lay eggs? They have ovaries? I don't know. See, I'm barely smart in like one thing, okay? When it comes to mental health, most people do not need a science lecture because they don't give a crap about the fancy words. They give a crap about feeling better. And they need language that makes them go, oh, that's what's happening to me. I'm not going crazy. I just forgot to drink water and confront my delusions for 6 weeks. So yeah, the social media mental health rhetoric is very loud. But that's why I'm doing this episode, right? Well, that and because my wife suggested it and she's smarter than me and this is an awesome idea. Because somewhere beneath all the hashtags and the performance art when it comes to mental health, there's real science. There's real people trying to understand themselves in a world that relentlessly tries to confuse us about who we are and who we need to be. And if I can make you laugh while explaining how your nervous system is trying to keep you from emotionally setting your hair on fire, then welcome to the damn Shift Show. You don't need to manifest peace and calmness. It's great if you do, but you also need to understand how your mind works when it's scared, when it's tired, and when it's overwhelmed. Because once you start to understand that a little bit, your manifestation now has a steroid shot of self-knowledge right into the vein. Now, let's talk a little bit about basic needs and what our basic human needs really look like. Sleep, food, connection, meaning, purpose, the stuff your therapist would call foundational things to your mental health, and things your grandma would call common sense. Drink your water, get your sleep, all that kind of stuff. And they're both right. So let's get down to the foundation. The stuff that every therapist ends up cycling back to, because 9 times out of 10, when somebody says, I'm falling apart, what they actually mean is I haven't slept, eaten, or had a genuine human interaction since gas was under $2. People overcomplicate mental health, but half the time it's just the basic stuff that's really being neglected. And your body is reacting to it. You can't build emotional stability on 3 hours of sleep, 1 Burger King meal a day, and 3 gallons of caffeine, right? That's not anxiety. You're in survival mode with good manners and behaviors that will probably induce anxiety, if we're being honest, because large amounts of caffeine cause anxiety, by the way. We all love to talk about self-care like it's this fun little mental event that goes on in our brain with spa days and scented candles and disappearing in the mountains to find yourself. And that's cool and that's great if it works for you. But most of the time, self-care looks a lot less like a sandals retreat and more like drinking a glass of water and switching your nervous system over. And yes, you can do that. It also means turning off your phone for a while before you try to fall asleep at night. Or finally doing the laundry that you've been staring at for 2 weeks. And because every time you look at it, you feel like a hostage in your own house. And this is why I love science. I get it why people don't love science, but let's talk about science for a second. Your brain runs on fuel. It needs sleep. It needs nutrition. It needs oxygen. And it needs genuine human connection to function like a semi-decent piece of equipment. Without those things, your nervous system acts like it's constantly in a car chase. And you don't necessarily have to experience a big T trauma for that to happen. You just need a prolonged period of running on frickin' empty. And a funny characteristic about us humans is we act like we're above our biology. Like, nah, I don't need to get 8 hours of sleep. I have ambition, and I'll sleep when I die. But you're not outsmarting your nervous system, okay? You're just slowly convincing it that you're in danger. You think you're grinding, but your brain thinks you're just trying to die faster. And you know what helps us to not die faster? Genuine human connection. We are social creatures. You don't have to be a people person necessarily, but you do have to be a person around people sometimes. And look, a lot of us are super introverted, right? But we're still pack animals at heart. We crave connection, whether it's through touch, affirmations, acts of love, or for somebody to hold our emotional hand sometimes. And the reason why isolation messes us up so bad is because our brain literally interprets being lonely as a threat. Let's go back to caveman times, where being alone meant that something was probably going to eat you, and your body doesn't know the difference between the two. Another big one is purpose. Look, it's important to have food, water, and Netflix, but if you wake up every day feeling like none of it matters, your brain eventually hits the existential reject button. Purpose doesn't mean change the world today or you're completely useless. Sometimes it just means finding something that reminds you you're still alive. Your kids, your dog, your art, the person who makes your coffee right. And that's your brain chemistry at work, and it's very important. So before you go and start chasing enlightenment, let's talk about doing functionality checks. Did I sleep? Did I eat? Did I move my body today? Did I connect with someone other than my Call of Duty character, right? Have something to look forward to that isn't just paying your bills and just trying to survive another day on this weird planet. That is maintenance for your brain. That's the oil change and the tire rotation for your mind. It's very difficult to work on your mental health if you're running on fumes all the time, because things aren't working the way that they're supposed to if you're not getting that fuel that your brain and your body needs. And speaking of things not working when they're supposed to, how about when your brain just decides that you don't need to be in reality anymore? Ever happened to y'all? Right? What a perfect segue into grounding. When I say grounding, I'm not talking about how your parents used to punish you when you were a kid. I mean the kind that keeps you from mentally flying off the planet when life starts throwing punches. Grounding is one of those therapy words, again, that people just throw around like everybody knows exactly what it is and what it means. But if you've ever been in a full-blown panic attack, a real panic attack, with the shaking and the sweating and the heart racing, someone saying just ground yourself feels like being told to calm down when you're skydiving and realizing you don't have a parachute, right? So let's fix that. What grounding actually means is how to remind your body that you're here, not over there, not in the memory that's replaying behind your eyes, not in the what ifs and the things that haven't happened yet, not in the 3 hours of imaginary disasters that your brain has already planned out, but you're here, right now, in the present moment. Because when your nervous system starts freaking out, that's your amygdala, okay? It's a little almond-shaped panic button in your brain that thinks everything is a threat. It's great for grizzly bears and house fires, the where do I go when I die questions, but it's terrible for emails and in-laws. Grounding pulls your prefrontal cortex, which is the logical, we're not actually dying part of your brain, back online after your limbic system pulled the plug. You're basically rebooting the system like you do when you know how you take the safety pin and push it in that tiny little hole on the back of your modem and reset your modem? That's what you're doing when you ground yourself. There are 100 ways to do it, but here's a rule. Grounding has to involve your senses, okay? That's how your brain knows that you're safe, because your brain can't overthink or outthink. It can overthink like hell. It can't outthink, panic. It has to feel out the panic, okay? Something like this. This is one of my favorites. 5 things that you can see. 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. That sounds really stupid, right? What's next, Adam? Fairy dust and using the Force? When you do that simple little practice, you're giving your brain something objectively real and tangible to focus on, instead of letting it build a horror movie out of your imagination or replaying your favorite embarrassing moment from your childhood. I got one of those. In middle school, 8th graders would do the morning announcements. And as a part of those announcements, we had to read off the lunch menu for that day. Well, if you haven't figured this out yet, there are some real stupid parts to me. And when I was in 8th grade and it was my turn to read off the morning announcements, y'all, I rocked through that thing like the social little butterfly that I am, until I told fellow students what we were having for lunch that day. Because I told them that for lunch, fellow students, we were having chicken fagitas when we were actually having chicken fajitas. By the way, laughing at your own embarrassment takes some of the power away. Just by the way. Boom! Psychology. Here's another good grounding technique. Cold water. Putting your hand underneath cold running water. Wetting a paper towel, putting it on your face, splashing your face with water. Anything that makes your body go, hey, we're not in mortal danger right now. We're just a little wet and a little colder than we were 3 seconds ago. The shock of cold water resets your vagus nerve. It slows down your heart rate, and it tells your body, stand down. Everything's okay. Right? We're fine. Some people use box breathing. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, repeat. That also sounds stupid, right? Breathing your way through your emotions. It sounds stupid, but think of it like emotional CPR. You're giving your nervous system the oxygen that it needs to calm down. And for all you anti-therapy warriors out there, grounding isn't kumbaya and spirit flossing, okay? It's tactical. It's science. You're not meditating on a mountaintop. You're just trying not to mentally explode. You'd be surprised how many people go through their entire life never realizing they can actually interrupt their panic. Okay? You don't have to wait for it to pass. You can pull the plug on it, right? Grounding's not about avoiding those feelings. It's about proving to your body that you were safe enough in that moment to feel them without getting stuck in them. That's what grounding is. So the next time your thoughts start running laps in your head, try grabbing a hold of your senses instead of your phone. Okay? Your phone will only make it worse. Let me say it again for everybody in the back. Your phone makes it worse. Put the phone down. Touch a tree, as my wife says. Go breathe some air. Listen to a squirrel. Go do something. Because your phone makes it worse. Using your senses will make it stop. And this seems like a pretty good opportunity to slide right into coping skills. The stuff that actually helps us, right? Instead of just hitting the pause button on our mental pain. I like to think of coping skills as emotional probiotics, so your brain doesn't mentally shit its pants. Now, coping tends to get a bad rap because we've turned coping into Instagram performance videos. People post their little bubble baths and their affirmations like they're Olympic events, and they want everybody to see that. Look at me, I'm naked in a bathtub. And I got my little candles, my little bath bomb. Everything's fine. I'm okay, world. And I get it. You're trying to get views. Slay, queen, or whatever the hell the cool children are saying these days. Now, those are some healthy coping skills, right? If you're using them to cope. And there are healthy coping skills and there are unhealthy coping skills. Guess which ones we usually reach for first? Like stress drinking, rage cleaning, overworking, avoidance, numbing things down, doom scrolling on your phone until you eventually pass out. And sadly, those things do work for a little bit of time anyways. If you've ever poured a drink, taken a drive, or buried yourself in your job just to make the noise in your head stop, okay, congratulations. That's your brain doing exactly what it's designed to do, to protect you. It's trying to turn the volume down. The problem is it doesn't know the difference between a productive coping mechanism and a maladaptive self-destruct button, okay? Good coping doesn't erase pain, okay? It helps you survive it without losing yourself. That's the big difference between numbness and navigation, okay? So let's break down the stuff that actually helps, that we know clinically helps. And fair warning, the things I'm about to talk about, they're not glamorous, okay? You won't find it on Instagram with inspirational font over a sunset with Bob Ross painting a happy little rainbow. It's the simple stuff. Move your body. Walk, stretch, lift weights, dance in your kitchen. Yes, even those of you who think dancing makes people gay. It doesn't. Stop it. Dance in your kitchen, you old, angry men. It'll make what's left of your little heart flutter, okay? Because you see, emotions are chemical, and chemicals need to go somewhere. If you sit still too long, your stress starts doing laps inside your body, like it's training for a marathon, okay? Write stuff down, not because journaling is just adorable, but because your brain needs an off-ramp. It needs a place to put the thoughts you can't currently figure out. It's easier to heal from what you've translated into words, okay? Talk to someone who actually listens to you. Not the, well, at least others have it worse, people. Someone who can actually sit with you in your mess without trying to fix you or get you to be quiet because you're making them uncomfortable. Connection regulates the nervous system, okay? Isolation makes it worse. even if you swear you're fine, and even if you prefer to be alone. And another simple and helpful mental health trick is keeping to a routine. Okay? I know, boring, but you know why having a roof over your head makes you feel safe? Because structure creates a sense of safety. When your world feels like it's out of control, predictability becomes medicine. And routine helps you manage a stressful day because there are things within your control, within your routine, which creates a sense of, you guessed it, Batman, safety. And then we have humor. Yes, the dirty little jokes and stupid things that make us laugh are real psychological healing. If you ever notice how laughing at something terrible makes the terrible thing feel a little smaller, that's your nervous system trying to catch its breath. That's why many first responders crack jokes in terrible situations. It's usually viewed as disrespect, but that's not usually where it's coming from. That's literally mental survival. Okay, trying to protect ourselves from the harmful thing that we're looking at. Now, here's what doesn't work. And most of us have become masters at these things. Pretending you're fine, waiting for motivation, numbing yourself with screens and booze, thinking it'll all just magically get better when life slows down. Once again, I come with news. It won't. Okay? You have to help create the slowdown. Okay? Good coping isn't cute. Sometimes it's gritty. Sometimes it looks like you're sitting on your bathroom floor in the middle of the night breathing through a panic attack. Okay? And reminding yourself, I'm safe. This is temporary. I'm not losing my mind. I'm just feeling this situation out to see where it takes me. Now let's move on to mindfulness. And let's do mindfulness for the people who hate the word mindfulness, because I know what you're thinking. If one more person tells me to be present, I'm going to throw their healing crystals into the ocean. I know. The word mindfulness makes half of you cringe, and it sounds like something that you hear at a yoga retreat from some guy named Skylar whose shirt's halfway buttoned up. Sorry, Skylars. No, ADHD. Mindfulness isn't crystals or gongs or sitting crisscross applesauce while trying to silence your bad thoughts. Okay? You can't just silence your thoughts. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Wouldn't it be nice? If you could, therapists would be out of a job. Mindfulness just means noticing what's happening in your head without immediately trying to figure it out, fix it, or run from it. Think of it like emotional awareness training. Your thoughts show up, you see them, and instead of chasing them like a rabid raccoon, you just watch them go by. That's mindfulness. That's it. Most of us live about 80% of our lives on autopilot. Have you ever driven home, parked your car, and then realized you have absolutely no idea how the hell you got home? That's your brain on autopilot. Mindfulness is taking back control of the steering wheel before you accidentally end up in your own mental ditch. Okay? That's what mindfulness is. When your mind is racing, mindfulness slows it down just enough to go, wait a minute, what's actually happening here? And you start noticing that your thoughts are a little bit more dramatic than what you thought they were. Like, if I screw up this project, I'll lose my job, then my house, then I'll be homeless, my wife will leave me, my kids will never talk to me again, and then I'll die. Mindfulness helps you realize that you just jumped from, I missed responding to an email, to planning my funeral in 3 seconds. Okay? And you should probably be aware of those things happening in your body. It's not about pretending that everything is perfectly fine. It's about noticing your stress and your panic and whatever your emotions are doing without turning those things into a prophecy. And you can practice it anywhere. Okay? You don't need cedarwood incense. My God, it smells good though. Or a soundtrack of moaning whales. When you eat, just eat. Put the phone down. Actually taste the food that you're eating. When you shower, actually feel the water. Pay attention to the temperature of the water and how it feels when it hits your skin. Don't plan your day or rehearse that argument, from 2 years ago while you're in there. When you're anxious, notice what's happening. My chest is a little tight. My stomach hurts. My brain's being super dramatic. You're labeling bodily sensations instead of judging what's happening to you. Okay? That's mindfulness. That's being aware of your current situation. You're pulling yourself out of the past, okay, which is the regret zone, and you're pulling yourself out of the future, which is the panic zone, and landing in what's actually frickin' real, which most of the time isn't nearly as bad as you're making it out in your head. Mindfulness activates the prefrontal cortex, and it calms down that almond-shaped part of your brain called the amygdala we talked about earlier. Let me translate that. It helps your logical brain take the wheel back from your we're all going to die brain. Does that make sense? You don't need to be calm to do it, okay? You just need to be curious to do it. So the next time your anxiety flares up, which is probably right now because of what we're talking about, try saying, that's interesting. I wonder what that's trying to tell me. And watch how that little tiny shift changes the storm that's going on in your head. And Lord, I've been talking a long time. Okay. I would like to suggest a little emotional maintenance 101 before we start to wrap things up. A little daily checkup for your brain, okay? And it's probably been begging for it for a while because just like your car, your emotions, they need regular service or eventually they will break down in the worst possible place. So, when it comes to emotional maintenance, 99% of us suck at it because again, when we were kids, nobody ever told us that we were supposed to do it or even how to do it, if they even knew how to do it themselves. We check the oil in our cars. We plug up our phones every single night before we go to sleep. We feed the dog twice a day. But our own mental health, we treat it like a smoke alarm. We don't think about it until it's screaming at us at 3 o'clock in the morning. Emotional maintenance is the stuff you do regularly so you don't end up falling apart spectacularly at the worst possible moment, like crying in an Olive Garden bathroom because they were out of breadsticks and it unlocked a core traumatic memory from your childhood. Emotions are not problems to fix, okay? They are internal messages to listen to. They're like the dashboard lights on your car. Your anxiety is saying, hey, excuse me, we're a little overwhelmed over here. Pay attention to us. Anger says something like, this feels unfair. I'm not sure about this. Sadness says, you lost something that mattered to you, right? But we were taught to treat emotions like bad house guests. Ignore them until they go away. So, start doing a little daily check-in. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What is it that I need? Have I actually eaten, slept, or hydrated? Or am I just mad because I'm human and I'm exhausted? Okay? Simple questions, honest answers, no judgment. Reggie's back. Reggie, I thought you were dead. My ADHD is we're going on another trip now. Okay? All right. Where was I? No judgment. Don't judge yourself. Okay? The more you check in with yourself, the faster you catch things before they start to snowball. Emotional awareness isn't about being in touch with your feelings, okay? It's about noticing what's off so you can course correct before your brain declares a national frickin' emergency, okay? And healing doesn't necessarily mean that you never feel bad again. You're gonna feel bad again, by the way. It means that when you do feel bad again, you don't panic about it. You recognize it, you respond to it, and you write it out. Emotional maturity is maintenance. And yes, this takes work. It takes practice. Emotional maintenance is how you stay human while the world keeps trying to turn us all into frickin' robots. You can't control when life sucker punches you in the throat. Okay, sometimes things just happen. But you can make sure that your foundation is solid enough that it doesn't knock you all the way down every single time that it does. Okay? That's the goal. Not perfection, just steadily evolving resilience. Now look, if you can't remember the last time you checked in with yourself, that's okay. A lot of people can't. You're here now. Here's your sign. It's time for a mental tune-up. So let's land this thing and get out of here because we all got shit to do. If there is one takeaway from this episode, I hope it is this. Your brain's not broken. It's just untrained. Okay? Nobody ever handed you a manual for how to regulate your emotions, unless you've been in therapy a while. They just threw you into life and said, good luck. Don't panic. Figure it out. And now you're short-circuiting under stress. Okay? We spend our lives maintaining our cars, our jobs, our pets, and our plants. But the one system that runs everything, how we think, how we feel, and everything that we do, we just hope that it works. Mental health is not a skill, nor is it a vibe. It's not a trend, nor is it just people who've been through something. Okay? It's emotional conditioning. Okay? You cannot lift one dumbbell and call yourself fit. You can't go to one therapy session and call yourself healed. It takes repetition. Sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's messy, but it works. And you get out of it what you put into it. And it doesn't have to be fancy, okay? You can sit in your truck for 5 minutes and breathe like you actually mean it, like you want to taste oxygen for the first time. You can say no one time this week. You can be human in a world that's obsessed with pretending. The world profits from your distraction. So every time you slow down and you breathe and you get real with yourself, you're taking some of that power back. So this was, the back to the basics, but basic doesn't necessarily mean easy, okay? Basic is what saves you when everything else stops working. So before you go, do one thing today that tells your brain we're safe, we're okay. Take a nap, take a walk, shoot a text to a good friend you haven't talked to in a while. Find something that makes you laugh. Watch a funny movie. Call that funny friend, whatever it is, okay? The stuff that we've talked about today, it's not been about changing yourself or becoming a whole new person. This episode has been about finally learning how to take care of yourself, right? Stop dragging yourself through freaking hell and start drinking water. Start sleeping all right. Start actually doing the things your body needs to function in a mentally healthy way. Train your brain like you train your body. All right, I want to thank you guys for sticking around, even though this episode is going to be a little shorter than what it usually is and seemed like it was a little rapid. But when this airs, I will actually be at a seminar with some phenomenal people. So got some busy times at the moment, but we'll get caught up and we'll get some episodes out with the segments in it, and we will get some guests and get some stuff going on. This is just a real busy time right now, okay? So if you laughed, learned, or mildly questioned your life choices today, go ahead and give us a like, comment, share, subscribe, whatever your thumbs feel emotionally ready for today. Check out the book if you haven't yet. Love yourself through all the bullcrap that comes your way this week. I hope to see you again next week. Come on back when the world gets too loud. I got that son of